Hey guys, I want to preface this episode. There is talk of torture and of suicide, so I wanted to go ahead and give you a trigger warning at the beginning of the episode. So if you guys are not really wanting to hear this kind of stuff, go ahead and skip this episode. Thanks. Hey guys, this is Lauren.
And this is London.
And this is Do Some Sage About It. So, today's episode is going to be kind of long. Both of our stories are very intricate, very complex, it's just a lot. We are venturing out of the United States to different countries, so that should be fun. The first story comes out of Scotland, and it is the Edinburgh Castle. It is the most besieged castle in Britain. It had 23 attacks throughout Scotland's history of it being like a fortress. It does house the country's crown jewels, and it served as a prison and barracks for a while. And this castle did protect the royal family during times of unrest. And this thing, it's huge. And it's beautiful. And it looks like a castle, but like not a castle that you see here in America. It looks like
We have castles in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it looks like a real castle, like huge. Like, you know, when we go to New Orleans through Louisiana, the little baby castle. Mm-hmm. It's like 50 million times bigger than that. It's beautiful. I'll put pictures on the social. So there are a lot of ghosts that haunt this property. The main ones, though, several hundred years ago, a network of tunnels was discovered at the castle along the Royal Mile, and a bagpiper was sent there to determine where the tunnels led. There is some debate on whether or not the bagpiper was a young boy or an adult soldier, but many believe that it was a young boy because the tunnels were too small for like an adult to fit inside. So as he walked through the tunnels, he played the bagpipes to alert those on the surface of his location. And about halfway through, the bagpipes just completely stopped. Shortly thereafter, they kind of waited for him to come out, and he never did. So they sent a search party in looking for him, and they had just basically discovered that he had vanished. There was no trace of him, no trace of the bagpipes, and they went a little past halfway where they stopped. Like the sound of the bagpipes had stopped initially, so they never found him. Shortly after that, the tunnel was resealed. And again, they never found his body.
It's kind of weird that he just vanished. His bagpipes.
Everything just completely vanished. They hadn't been through the tunnels before, so there may have been like a little offshoot or something that he may have gone into and gotten trapped in, but he was never seen again, because they completely resealed the tunnels. So if he did make it out, they don't know what happened because he was never seen or heard from. So it is said that you can still hear the bagpipes emanating from underground when it's quiet outside, basically when it's like later in the day and the traffic is slower, so you don't hear all the noise of the traffic surrounding the castle, and you can hear like the bagpipes. And people say it's creepy.
Sounds like it is.
Because you're hearing it from underground. There are also drums heard. Legend has it that in 1690, the sighting of a drummer boy represented a harbinger of an attack against the castle, and this was only a year after Charles I was beheaded. The same year, Oliver Cromwell's army was laying siege to the castle, which gave the folklore some weight. So, seeing that drummer at the castle, folklore was that it was indicating that there was an attack approaching. And then the attack actually happened, so people kind of believed it rather than it being just kind of coincidence. And a harbinger is a person or thing that announces the arrival or approach of something. So again, in this case, it was announcing the arrival and approach of, Oliver Cromwell's army.
So it's kind of like when when a king or someone whose royalty's coming and they've come out with the trumpets.
Yeah, but this is more, like, paranormal, otherworldly. Like, normally it's like the harbingers of death, and there's several of them, so it's like the plague of locusts. I don't remember all of them, but it's similar, but this is like just for dead ones. Yeah. It has been reported that there have been sword-shaped meteors speeding across the sky and spectral soldiers riding horseback while the drummer played his drums along the battlements each night. One of the bigger concerns that people have about the drummer is that he's headless. Yeah.
How can you drum if he's headless if you can't see the drums?
Well, I mean, like, it would be the same as, like, a blind person doing the drums. They do it by feel. It's a ghost. I don't know. Ghosts do things that don't really make a whole lot of sense most of the time. So, after seeing this, or several people seeing this, the castle governor decided to investigate the activity, but never found a ghost. However, he did hear a drum playing an old Scottish war tune, and heard, like, many feet marching to that tune. So, like, not a battle cry, but like a battle tune, and many soldiers, assumingly, marching to it. So he heard, like, that big, had to have been a big noise. In 2003, a construction crew member was performing restoration at the castle and claimed that the ghosts of prisoners from the Napoleonic Wars were harassing him. Photos of these men working in the Queen Anne building were taken, and a hazy blue orb can be seen floating above all of their heads. And many of them basically refused to work alone anywhere in the castle because of all the issues that they were having. There is a exhibit called The Prisoners of War, and it is deep below the castle's crown square. And in that crown square, or below it, sits a dark dungeon that was used to harbor the prisoners of war that they captured. The prisoners were beaten and tortured horrifically, which led to them being killed, and it's believed that their souls linger, not realizing that they're dead. So you see a lot of shadows and things walking around in the dungeon, and you hear, like, a lot of noises, a lot of chains clinking, a lot of screaming. Again, there is a prisoners of war exhibition in the dungeon, and it is filled with prisoners' uniforms hanging off of the ropes attached to fabric beds from the rafters. And they kind of lay it out like it used to be. There are bits of bread and soup and tiny cups of water left on nearby tables. And patches of cold air, like, breeze past you. Like, you don't walk into a patch. It comes at you. Yeah. So, it's a little creepy. I don't like the cold anyway, so I would not like that. There are ghost dogs at this castle. There is a tiny cemetery for dogs deep within the Edinburgh Castle. So, I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's kind of...
They have their own little cemetery for the little puppies and things that passed, you know, while the kings and queens were there. You know, they weren't, like, just, you know, tossed over the side, I guess. It dates back to 1837, so lots of babies.
That's almost 200 years worth of...
Yeah.
Ghosts.
Dogs. Yeah. Lots of baby dogs were buried here. It does have several little tombstones engraved with the dogs' names. So it's like an actual graveyard. Cute. Yeah, it's cute. It can be viewed from above the Argyle Battery, which overlooks the Princess Street Gardens. There are two main dogs that are seen. The first dog is thought to be the spirit of one of the dogs buried at the castle. Visitors and staff have heard distant sounds of barking, howling, and scratching, and he is described to be a black dog with scruffy fur surrounded by a constant misty outline, but they have never, like, verified this information. Like, he wasn't seen in any kind of pictures from the royal family or anything like that, so they're really not sure who this dog is. Others have seen a ghostly figure walking with a small white dog. later on, we kind of find out who that person is. So another of the ghosts is the prisoner who hid in a dung barrow. So it was a wheelbarrow full of shit. Yeah. So over the years, at least 49 prisoners have successfully escaped the prison in an attempt to be brought out of the castle by the hands of others. This particular prisoner decided to hide in a wheelbarrow full of shit, believing that he would be carried outside to his freedom. Instead of finding freedom, he found that the barrow was actually dumped over the rocky crags and plummeted to his death.
Oh, wow. I mean, he got out.
Not in the way he wanted to. He is said, when he is spotted at the castle, he attempts to, or successfully has pushed people over the castle wall. And it is said that there is a very, very, very strong smell of manure when he's around, so you kind of know. So if he's around and you're near, like, a ledge, move, because he's taking you with him. There is another ghost. He is known as the ghost with the leather apron. Many visitors have said that they felt watched or get a burning sensation on their arms, and when they turn around, they see a spooky man wearing a leather apron, but they know it's not, like, a real person because he's like, translucent, and he's normally in a doorway. Like, in the doorway. The first sighting happened in 2001, so he's, like, a newer recent one. But this was when a group of volunteers had headed into Edinburgh Castle to do a research project. It was not about the ghosts. They were not aware that there were going to be ghosts. And they saw a man in a leather apron appearing and then walking through a doorway. Not an open doorway. So, yeah, they were kind of shocked. But that was the first sighting of him. Another huge one is the ghosts of accused witches. So we're going to get into a little bit about the witch trials in Scotland, because I think this is a good spot for it, to explain why the witches are haunting this castle, or the areas surrounding it. The Witches' Well commemorates the Scottish women who were accused of witchcraft and murdered between the 15th and the 18th century. So 3 centuries worth of women were murdered.
A lot of women.
That's a lot. Oh, a whole lot. It's sickening. Scotland has the dubious honor of having executed the most people during this time. And that is in large part due to King James VI, who deeply hated witches and had a strong obsession with the dark arts. We call it an unhealthy obsession.
Okay, so he hated the witches, but he liked dark arts.
No. Being obsessed with something doesn't mean you like it. Just being obsessed with it means that is your focus. So he was obsessed with the dark arts in the sense that he wanted to know everything about it so he could get as many witches as possible. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. He issued a decree that anyone suspected of being a witch must be in league with the devil himself and therefore must be put to death. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The hysteria around witches led to a mass miscarriage of justice, and this was in part due to a book called the Malleus Maleficarum, The Witch Hammer, by Henrik Kramer, and this was basically a how-to guide on capturing and killing witches.
Wow.
Yeah. The vast majority of these women who were hanged never had a chance at a fair trial. And the ones who falsely admitted guilt were subjected to horrific torture prior to being killed. One of the most famous cases was that of the North Berwick witch trials. So upon returning home from Denmark with his new bride in tow, James VI encountered a storm so terrible that they had to turn back and go back to Denmark. And at that time, he became convinced that the storms were the work of the witches in New Berwick, which was a super tiny, or it used to be, a super tiny village on the Scottish coast. Like, nothing went on there, but that's where he chose that these witches were coming from. Around 70 women were accused of being witches or their accomplices and were either hung or burned at the stake. Fun fact, but not so fun. Witches were only hung in the Americas. They were never burned in the United States, and they were only burned in Europe. So Europe did hanging and burning. The U.S. only did hangings. Once James VI returned to Scotland after the incident, his deputy bailiff, David Seaton, began suspecting his housemaid, Gellis Duncan, of witchcraft. Seaton would claim that Gellis would sneak out at night and suddenly obtain magical healing powers. He proceeded to try and torture a confession out of her. The torture was brutal and included thumbscrew torture called pillywinks, and this involved slowly tightening a screw-like instrument to gradually crush the victim's thumbs. However, Gellis refused to confess to any such accusations and was then tormented by wrenching, which is having one's head crushed with a rope.
Wow.
Yeah, they were sick. After this torture, Seaton found the quote-unquote devil's mark on Gellis's skin, usually a mole or skin tag or blemish of some sort, birthmark, and she finally broke and confessed, and during her 1 year that she spent in prison before her death, she implicated others because she was being tortured. Witchcraft officially became a capital offence in Scotland during the reign of Queen Mary of Scots, when Parliament passed the Scottish Witchcraft Act in 1563, giving Scottish people the legal right to hunt, torture, and execute people perceived as witches. We're going to get into, probably have several episodes on the witch trials all over the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
There's a lot, and it's insane, but it needs to be known. Anyway, there were numerous ways to torture and test witchcraft. Some methods include shackling the accused witches to cell walls and depriving them of sleep for days on end, thus causing hallucinations and hysteria, which kind of led them to, giving false confessions because they were delirious.
They didn't know what was happening.
They were sleep deprived and they were delusional and delirious, and then they were just kind of at the point where they were just agreeing to
whatever they were saying, so
right,
they could just
sleep or be left alone, because this was constant torture. They were not given a break. These women were tortured
24/7
mercilessly. There were many torture implements used. The most common ones was the scold's bridle, which was a muzzle to hold the tongue in place and prevent the accused from speaking. They would remove the fingernails of those accused, and they would pierce the tongues and cheeks with 4-pronged iron forks while they were in the scold's bridle.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. Accused witches were dispatched in a variety of ways, with the most common being hanging, but the other methods involved the accused being placed in a barrel that had large nails hammered into it. So they were hammered from the outside, so the spike part would be on the inside part of the barrel. You've seen those like dog washing feet things.
Yeah, where it's
the little tubes. Yeah. So imagine that, but it's a barrel and it's all like rusty nails, long rusty nails, spiky. So they would be placed inside of the barrel and then rolled down a cobblestone road. And yeah. So then once the barrel stopped, it would then be set on fire to ensure that the person inside of it was dead.
That's fucked up.
It's real fucked up. In truth, the majority of the women accused of being witches were simply herbalists using flowers as medication to help heal wounds and ailments. A lot of them were mentally ill, but the majority of them were just someone who had pissed off a neighbor. Made a neighbor jealous.
So then it was like, fuck you, you're a witch.
Right, or just was an outspoken female and she wasn't going to bow down to what
men were saying.
Exactly. So automatically, you're a witch.
Yeah, they hated that. They hated when women spoke up, when women did anything that a man should do.
Exactly. A lot of them were midwives, and it was thought that the midwives were witches if the baby came out deformed, sick, or stillborn. It didn't occur to them that these could be natural causes. It was the witch. She was a witch. If the babies were fine, not a witch. And a lot of the women, whether they were herbalists, mentally ill, pissed someone off, a lot of them were poor. So they just kind of rounded up poor women and decided you are all witches because you're dirty, you can't bathe. I mean, in like the 1600s, I don't think there was a whole lot of bathing, but they not only attacked just women, but it was mainly women who were not in a position to be able to defend themselves.
So they went after the vulnerable ones.
Yeah.
That's even more fucked up.
Yeah. There was no real way to quote-unquote prove witchcraft, so one of the most common tests that they could come up with at the time was to tie the witch's hands and feet together and throw them into the Nor Loch, which is like a lake. Loch means lake, I think. Like the Loch Ness Monster. It's
the lake monster.
Right. So this was the Nor Loch. And if they drowned, they were innocent and would go to heaven, but if they survived, they accepted this as proof of witchcraft and were then murdered and burned at the stake.
How does that make sense?
It doesn't. That is this whole fucking thing. None of this makes any kind of sense. Over 300 women were burned at the very site that sits the witch's well in the castle. Again, the witch's well is like this ornate, designed well to commemorate the women who were murdered for witchcraft at this castle.
I mean, is that a good thing?
Yeah, for a commemorate means like a memorial. So, like, they kind of realized that, hey, we kind of fucked up, and we're going to put this here now for the people who we senselessly killed.
Probably thousands. If it was 300 years worth of killing women, that's probably a lot of women.
Well, 300 were burned on that very spot. 300. At that one spot. And that doesn't include the hangings or
the barrel
anything
rolls
that was outside of the castle. Yeah, this is inside of the castle at that spot.
It's fucked up.
It's real fucked up. They also had a method known as witch pricking. And this is when they would stab an accused witch with a really, really sharp needle. And if it didn't hurt or didn't bleed, they took this as a devil's mark in the spot where they poked them. And they accepted that as proof of witchcraft. Like, I don't know if you have ever been poked by a really sharp needle.
I mean,
but like, sometimes it doesn't hurt.
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't bleed.
I mean, I've had a whole ass tattoo not fucking hurt the whole time. The one on my neck, the huge one on my neck, my Saints tattoo, did not even feel it at all. Now these little tiny ones, this little heart on my wrist, and the other ones, the one on my thigh, that shit hurt. But it's not unrealistic to think that if you get pricked by a needle, a super sharp one, that you're not going to feel it. People get stabbed all the time and don't always feel it. Yeah, even with like knives.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even bleed. They just...
Exactly. But in the 1600s, 1500s, this is what they took as proof, quote unquote, of being a witch. So, you know, not really proof at all, actually. By the end of the 17th century, burning witches had mostly ended, but the hanging did continue until 1728. And then in 1735, Parliament of the Kingdom of Great Britain, they passed a law making it a crime in Scotland to accuse any other human being of possessing magical powers or practicing witchcraft.
That's good, though.
So the Parliament was like, we are fucking done with this shit. Y'all are crazy. There are no witches. We're done. You're done. It's over. So there have been no reports of sighting of witches actually inside of the castle walls, but there have been thousands of reports around the castle walls and in the surrounding area. It is not really known why, especially because at least 300 of them were burned inside of the castle walls, but it doesn't really, explain why they're not haunting the inside of it, because I would.
Haunt the whole fucking thing.
I would haunt everybody who is in that family line. I would make their lives miserable.
Even if they had nothing to do with it, fuck those people.
I would have been killed if I had lived during that time.
Yeah.
I would definitely have been killed because I relate more to the pagan and Wiccan lifestyle. I do not bow down to a man. I am insubordinate. I talk back. My husband can confirm that. I fight, literally. I will fight a grown man in a towel.
She's done that before.
Which I have done, and my brother can confirm that. I would definitely be targeted.
I would get hung just for the way I look.
Yeah, I mean, I would be targeted. I've got tattoos, piercing. These things were also signs of witches. Like, if you had I don't know how they did tattoos back then, but I guess they did.
Because, I mean, I know people back then had them.
Yeah.
They all had, like, royal family tattoos.
Right, like the crest, the royal crest. But royal blood could not possibly be influenced by witchcraft.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you were too busy being incestuous to keep the blood blue and pure, you didn't have time for witchcraft. I don't know how that works because I don't live in that time. But, you know, these little simple things, I have birthmarks, I have a mole, I have like a skin tag under my arm.
I'm covered in freckles.
Yeah, all of these things would be considered the mark of the devil. And that I would be practicing witchcraft and basically just my fucking attitude. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that because we are the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn. Mm-hmm. So another of the ghosts is called the Grey Lady. And she is known to be Lady Janet Douglas of Glamis. She is the one seen to be wandering the castle with her little white dog that I mentioned from before. She suffered a horrifically tragic death at a young age because someone had accused her of poisoning her first husband, which she did not do, and said that she had plans to poison the king, which she did not. And this was enough to get her charged with treason, and she was thrown in the prison at Edinburgh. Over time, Janet was tortured mercilessly for a confession, and that was not only limited to her. It turned out that people were also accosting and torturing her family members and her servants at her castle to get confessions out of them. And because of the torture and the harassment, some of the servants and the family members kind of turned on her just to get...
just to get out of that.
To get out of it. To have themselves be left alone because, like, why... I wouldn't... Like, I probably wouldn't turn on anybody, but I also couldn't handle being constantly harassed about somebody, you know, and...
Cat's licking the back of my leg.
Ew. Constantly tortured like that. And in 1537, she was hanged and burned at the stake on Castle Hill. It doesn't say that they thought she was a witch, but they basically gave her the same treatment that they gave the witches as far as, like, the torture and how she was killed. And it said that she is seen and you can hear her screams of pain before she disappears.
That's bad.
Yeah, I mean, she was hung and burned at Castle Hill, which I think is either inside of the castle or on the castle grounds. It's on the property. And so they call, like, that whole area the Royal Mile, and it's because it's, like, just a mile of, I guess, where the castle is and all the surrounding areas that make up that property. And that is kind of where a lot of the paranormal activity happens, like, especially with the witches. A lot of people have seen, like, fires in the woods surrounding the castle, and then when they go to put it out, there's nothing there.
Probably could be from the barrels.
The what?
The barrels, when they light the barrels on fire after rolling them down the hill.
That, or just the witches being burned at the stake. You know, my thing is, like, with the witches, anybody that's thrown into the water, tied up, is probably going to drown. Male, female, young, old. If you're tied up, you don't have any way to move yourself to the surface. I don't know. This is like
Their reasonings were, like, stupid.
This is like one of the biggest things. Like, I'm so excited to do, like, a full witch trial one. It's probably going to be a several-parter episode. Because there is so much happening. So many theories as to what made a witch. And it's just, I don't know. Like, it physically hurts my heart to think about all these people who were put to death because someone was jealous or angry or didn't like the way she baked her bread. Like, I've heard some crazy stories of why people were accused of witchcraft. And, like, nowadays, if someone is accused of being a witch, like, we own that shit now. Mm-hmm. We own that shit. We've got our crystals, we've got our salt, I've got sage bundles, you know, I've got my Ouija board shit.
People literally, like, go out of their way just to practice witchcraft.
Right. And I don't know if that's because
of what happened in the past.
And people are just now being comfortable to be able to be themselves and do what they want to do, because fortunately we do have semi that freedom now. But, you know, I have tried other religions, and it's just not for me. The whole God thing is not for me. If that's for you, if that's what you believe in, that's cool. But for me, it just doesn't make any sense. There are too many questions, too many issues.
Not enough proof and evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would rather worship and love the things that are real. Mother Nature, you know, the earth. You can grow things in the earth. Things come from the earth.
My favorite things come from the earth.
Yeah. Mine too. Well, kind of. Cheese comes from cows, but they eat the earth, so, you know, it is what it is. But we definitely are going to get deeply into the witch trials, because it blows my mind. It is batshit bananas crazy. The amount of people who were murdered, number one, but number two, who were influenced to believe in witches and that this is how they should be dealt with.
It's just fucked up.
I mean, it's not surprising because we saw what happened when Trump ran for office. Yeah. So it does not surprise me that people are easily fooled. Oh. But that's the Edinburgh Castle. It is beautiful. Again, I will post some socials, post some pictures on the socials of this castle and the well and, you know, whatever else I can find. So.
Well, this is the Aokigahara forest, aka the suicide forest. It's in Japan. This is a place where darkness and death are normal. It's pretty much seeking those who were lost and desperate. If you're kind of just at the end in Japan, everyone just goes to the suicide forest. It's a very dense forest that the canopy is so thick that the sun barely penetrates down to the bottom of it. You can't really see the sun because of how thick the forest is. It's grown on hardened lava from Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is Japan's biggest mountain. And it is very quiet and very, very eerie. I mean, it's 13.5 miles of forest. That's a lot of forest.
It's a real big forest.
But it is believed that this forest is a place of no return for the lost.
What's that?
There are trails inside of the forest that you can follow to simply visit. But with the dense trees and minimal light, if you veer off the beaten path, it could become very dangerous very quickly. Bringing a tent to the forest will draw attention. Camping is allowed, but police will view these tents to potentially be contemplating suicides, and visitors who stay for days may be trying to weigh their decisions.
So, people who bring in tents, you said the police? The officials?
The police kind of, like, I guess, are watching to make sure that they're not going to take their lives in the forest.
And they feel like people who stay there for multiple days are kind of
contemplating on whether or not they want to do it.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. People on prevention patrol will genuinely speak with those carrying tents and encourage them to leave the forest because of the fact that they know
what the outcome usually is. That is so sad. Can you imagine being the person on suicide patrol, having to talk people that you don't even know down from the quote-unquote ledge and ask them to leave the forest because they know why they're there. Oh, that is so heartbreaking.
However, suicide in Japan does not harbor the same connotations that it does in other countries. Like, I know in some countries it's actually completely illegal to kill yourself. I mean, I feel like even if people are just threatening, they have been known to be thrown in jail.
That doesn't help anything.
Yeah, it really doesn't at all.
That just makes the situation so much worse. These people who have suicidal thoughts, they're already going through something horrible. And they feel like this is the only way out. So yeah, let's arrest them and put them in jail. I get they're doing it for their own safety. That way they can be monitored. But there are other ways to do that.
It is called the practice of seppuku, which is a samurai's honorable... It's an honorable suicide, I guess.
Yeah, in Japan, they don't view suicide like, I guess, we do here.
The forest's reputation began to take root in the early 20th century when a book called Kurai Jukai, in English that translates to the Black Sea of Trees, told of a love-struck couple who committed suicide in a forest.
Okay, a book about this? Okay.
I guess kind of like Romeo and Juliet, how they both
Does
killed
it
themselves.
say if it's a true story?
No. I mean, it just
Says that there was a book written about it.
And I guess people took it a little bit too much. But this is what really, really got me. It is estimated that over 100 suicides are completed in the forest every year. And this has been going on for a good bit.
That's crazy. That's a lot of people.
Based on that, it's made it one of the most notorious suicide spots across the globe.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100 people a year at least. That's a lot of people per year. And that's like a consistent number. It's not, like 12 this year. At least 100 a year. At least, at minimum.
And there is an unknown amount of attempted reports, suicide reports. But it is said that it's probably upwards of high thousands.
I can imagine if 100 are completed and there are thousands of people visiting a year, that there are a lot of people who made the right decision. You know, I do not condone suicide, obviously, but I'm not saying that they made the wrong decision either, because they made the decision that
they thought was best for them.
Yeah, they made the decision that they thought was best for them, but suicide is never, ever the answer, ever.
But the reason for this is there is a painful history of mental health issues in Japan. Like, there is a lot.
And they don't have any resources?
Not really. The immense pressure to perform, succeed, and conform in Japanese society takes a toll on the mental health of many, which leads to feeling of isolation, despair, and hopelessness. Because they all kind of have to fit into, like, this certain look, genre,
mold,
certain
right.
just... They have to be someone that they don't want to be, and because of that, they kind of just...
I mean, there's, like, that long-running joke about people in high school, like, the Asian children have to be good at math. They have to be good at science, not silence. I don't know if they're good at silence. They might be. But they are pressured, you know.
And when they don't live up to that, everyone kind of bullies them.
Yeah, they want them to be doctors and lawyers and, like, things that are important and high-end, and the pressure of that is just, I can't imagine. It's got to be immense, you know. I just want my children to live happy lives and do what they like to do, but, you know, obviously make money and be happy doing it.
You don't care what we do as long as we're not a serial killer.
Unless you're like Dexter, where you're killing people who kind of deserve it. But other than that, no. Just don't kill people, you know. But I don't care who you end up with. I don't care who you love. I don't care what you do, as long as it's something that makes you happy and you were safe doing it and you are not hurting other people.
But because of how many people have taken their lives in the forest, many believe that there are supernatural powers of the forest, and that even if you do commit suicide in it, that the forest will protect you.
From what?
From just anything bad that could happen, say, like, in the afterlife. Like, you'll feel when...
Gotcha.
People have said that they think it kind of gives them, when they're in the forest, that they feel... People who are on the verge of doing it feel safer in the forest. That they feel like home.
This is what they're meant to do.
Yeah. And so I guess it just protects them in the afterlife from all the issues that they've had in their lives.
Still not a good option in my opinion, but nobody asks me.
But it is believed to contain Yurei, or mythological Japanese ghost filled with anger and vengefulness in some parts of it.
Okay, so angry spirits, got it.
But there are many different types of just the Japanese ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
How they appear depends on the circumstances surrounding their death. Like people who have died, how...
Like by gunshot, they would appear with like a gunshot wound or stabbing or broke their neck.
Yeah, they just really depends.
So these ghosts don't even pretend to cross on.
Nope.
They just stay there and be angry.
And it said that they're capable of invoking powerful curses upon people.
It's also not good. So this is not the place that you need to go to if you're even slightly depressed.
But like I was saying, these spirits are said to call to those who are on the brink of suicide. They are known to provide encouragement.
Okay.
It's also said that they can kind of sound like someone that they love, like loved ones. And the ones who are the evil ones, they're known to speak badly about them and to the people who are on the verge, to kind of push them over the edge. And hearing the voices of them and hearing, say, like, someone you looked up to your entire life, say, like, your great-grandma, you loved her so much, and then, because of the ghosts in the forest are saying, like, some of the most cruel things to and about you. And
like, as the great-grandmother?
As the great-grandma, like...
Okay, so they're mimicking...
They're mimicking people that these people had loved to try to get them to join them.
So... That's real fucked up.
Yeah, it's
like, imagine you're already on the brink, and then you feel like you're not good enough, and then you go into this forest, and then you hear, like, the voice of your mother.
Telling you
that you're a piece of shit, you're not good for anything. Oh my god.
And hearing the voices can and often does cause hysteria, bringing those on the edge just a little bit closer to the decision of actually killing themselves.
That is so sad.
And these spirits are mainly thought to be those of the elderly who were taken to the forest and left for dead. So not ones who had killed themselves, just ones who had been left there.
Why were the elderly taken and left for dead?
They were, I guess, getting too much for people to handle. Like how when they just dump them off into a retirement home.
Okay.
So they just kind of got tired of taking care of these sick elderly people, so they would just leave them there.
That's real fucked up.
And because of that, they're taking souls from those who are suffering because they suffered, so they're kind of suggesting, hey, you should do it.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
So, hold on, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Families would dump their elderly family members in the forest with no supplies.
Just leave them there.
To let them die.
Yep.
Because they couldn't handle them anymore. They couldn't take care of them anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, I would be a vengeful fucking spirit also.
Some visitors have reported strange phenomena like compasses breaking, as well as GPS and smartphones like no longer working. But the most common method of suicide in the forest is hanging. But there's something called abandoning an old woman, which this kind of just explains why and what they did to the elders. In this practice, allegedly reported in times of famine, younger family members would lead their elderly to spots like the forest and just leave them there to die from dehydration, starvation, or exposure.
Okay, so it was more than just not wanting to take care of them. It was during the famine when they had to stretch the food and they couldn't feed everybody.
Why would you just ditch the elderly? I mean, probably because they had already, lived like a full life.
Yeah,
but still, that's still a little fucked up.
It kind of makes sense, but it is fucked up. Like, you wouldn't keep the elderly because you know they're the ones dying. You would protect the younger family members to continue on the legacy, So, I mean, I don't want to say it makes sense in like the sense that I feel like it's appropriate, because it's not, but I can understand why they chose the elderly, I guess. Not why they did what they did, but why it was the elderly.
But annual searches for the deceased have been held in the forest since 1970.
1970.
Mm-hmm.
So since 1970, they're pulling 100 people at minimum out of the forest.
Volunteers patrol the area and recover the remains of the deceased. Police help trek through the trees to bring bodies out for a proper burial. In the early 2000s, it was reported that anywhere from 70 to 100 people's remains were recovered each year.
That's crazy. Since 1970? How many years ago was that? That's a lot.
Almost 50. It's like 50.
Yeah.
53.
That's still a lot. That's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
So if you were born in 1970, you're 53. Just keep that in mind.
Or turning.
You're old. Okay.
You're almost there.
No, they're there. They're not almost old. They're old. Now, 53 is pretty young. I don't feel as old as I am.
15 years older than you.
Yeah, I don't feel as old as I am. You know, I definitely don't look it, but lady fucking carded me last night at Walmart for alcohol, and she looked at me like my ID was fake. I'm like, bitch, that's me.
It's even worse when I'm with you.
Yeah. They used to have to put a over 21 armband on me at the casino because every fucking security officer would stop me.
Somebody had told me I looked 6.
No, there is no way you look 6. You're like 9 foot tall.
Yeah. But visitors have found a multitude of items while exploring, like empty campsites, discarded jackets, nooses on the trees, meaning people were taking the bodies off of the nooses.
Can you imagine having that job? Like, and
what's
they're
your job?
volunteers.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even paid for that.
Yep. What's your job?
That's like turning my stomach really bad.
And there's been even empty bottles of bleach. Like, people are drinking bleach,
oh my
Drano,
God.
Stuff like that. Now this.
That is so horrific.
This part pisses me the fuck off. 2017. Logan Paul. He's a YouTuber. He filmed a trip where they went to the suicide forest. There's not even... It says allegedly, but there's no allegedly to it. I watched the video when it came out. It was 100% true.
I watched it.
In fact, did record a dead body for a solid 15 minutes of just on the dead body. It was young man. He was maybe a teenager. He was young. And he did this for a whole 15 minutes. And he could see it there, and he just continued to do it. Then, when he released the video, so many people from even Japan,
especially Japan,
all over the world, were reporting the video, just saying this is
disrespectful.
This is not respectful, because, like, why would you record a dead body and you see it and continue to do it and then laugh about it and post it to the public?
Now, like, okay, if you're gonna record it for your own personal enjoyment, whatever fucking kind of enjoyment,
just delete it. Don't post it.
Even don't delete it. Just don't fucking post it.
Just don't.
Just don't. That is so disrespectful, and I hope whoever that was and their family took legal action against Logan Paul.
They sued him.
Good.
It was like $16 million they sued him for.
Good. And I hope they got it. Maybe that's why he's a punk-ass boxer now and not a fucking YouTuber. Yep. He sucks at that, too.
Yep.
He's disgusting. He is the scum of the fucking earth and does not deserve the air that he is breathing. And that is my honest opinion, and I will fucking stand on that.
I used to be a big...
I know you did, and I was going to get you some of his merch, and then that shit happened, and I said, abso-fucking-lutely not.
And with that, officials have taken action to combat the suicide rates in the forest by posting signs at the entrance that read, "Life is a precious gift," from their parents, and it asks those wanting to commit suicide to quietly think once more about your parents, siblings, or children, and lets them know to please don't suffer alone and first reach out. Just, because help is offered. Even if...
Help is out there. It's there.
Just, you gotta find someone who's actually willing to listen. Because I know some people you could say it to and then they'll just joke about it. But then the ones who will actually... There's people who will actually listen and try to help you who won't just be a dick about it. But there's a lot of people who will be a dick about it. But the second most popular suicide spot in the world. Oh no, it's the second. It's the second.
It is the second. The forest is the second most popular.
And the most popular is the Golden Gate Bridge.
A lot of people jump off that bridge.
Yeah. It is believed that those who commit suicide in the forest do so because they believe they will be able to die successfully without being noticed. Because they kind of feel like they had been ignored their entire life, and then they just feel like the forest is the safest place to.
Well, I mean, the forest is so dense and secluded that you probably, even if you were to leave like a suicide note saying, "Hey, I'm going to the forest," like you probably wouldn't.
Like I said, there's 13.5 miles of forest.
You wouldn't be able to be found. I mean, you said that the trees are so thick that light can't even get through. So
you can't. If you were to say like be on the outside of the forest, you can't see but maybe 3 feet into the forest. Because of how many trees and how thick it is.
Yeah, I remember that movie. What was it called? The Forest, and it was about that forest. Yeah, that fucking spooked me. Because she was tortured while she was looking for her sister. She was mentally tortured in there. Yeah,
that forest has been known to. Even if you're like, that's why people who have visited, I know they have said that when they've come out, they didn't go in feeling suicidal, but they've come out feeling not okay because of what they experienced in the forest. And that's kind of fucked up though, that the ghosts are literally recruiting others to kill themselves.
Yeah, I mean, especially if they are those elderly people, like, I get it. Like, they were left there. They were left alone, abandoned by their family, and it's kind of like they are not alone anymore.
Yeah, they're trying to get others so that they're not alone.
But how many is it going to take?
Yeah, with 100 people every year, and this is known since at least 1970.
And you said now they're not even releasing the numbers of how many, so it could be...
Since early 2000s they stopped, and then they said anywhere from 70 to 100 people.
And I know people from other countries take trips to go to this forest to do that. And it's not just the Japanese.
So it's been 50 years since 1970. That's 100 people a year. 5,000 people.
At minimum.
Yeah, at minimum.
That have been reported. That have been found.
Plus all of the thousands of attempted. That is fucked up. And it's mainly because of the forest.
And I'm glad that we can count the attempted, because that means you're still with us. You didn't do it, and that's important.
That you powered through it, that you hopefully got the help that you needed. But yeah, that's a suicide forest. It's sad what happened in there.
It's very depressing.
It is, definitely.
I wasn't depressed at the beginning, but now I'm
now I feel like
my whole mood is ruined. Yeah. And that's so sad. And we will link some suicide hotlines and stuff in the bio, just in case you guys are suffering and you don't know who to turn to or how to get any help. Because suicide, like I've said 4 times now, it's not the answer. It's never going to be the answer for anybody. It does not solve your problems. It just gives them to somebody else.
Yeah.
I have had 3 that I can count, people who have committed suicide that have been close to me. And it's rough.
It is.
Really serious, close to home topic for me. And it's an uncomfortable topic. It's, but talk to somebody. Please talk to somebody if you're going through it. Don't harbor it inside of yourself. Don't think that no one's going to care. If someone treats you like they don't care, find somebody else. There's going to be someone, even a complete stranger, who will sit there and listen to you. And a lot of the time, people, all they need is to talk.
They just need to talk. My best friend now, she was going through some things, and we had just randomly met on TikTok, and now she is my absolute best friend. I love her. We met, I don't even know how long ago, but I just know that she's definitely made everything a lot better knowing her.
And that's all that matters. There is always going to be that one person, but you can't pour all of yourself into that one person because people change, friendships end.
Yeah.
But you've got to get to the point where you're comfortable talking to somebody about your feelings and your emotions, because you're loved, you're wanted, even if you don't feel like you are. Everybody deserves to be here on this earth except, like, pedophiles and murderers and people who abuse animals. Like, I couldn't give a fuck less about y'all. Y'all can go ahead and off yourselves. I guess we'll end this the way we always do. Thank you so much for the support.
I can't believe we're 6 episodes in,
I know.
though.
And I cannot believe that we have a Patreon supporter, which is my brother, by the way.
So he doesn't really count.
Well, he counts. Matthew counts. So, you know, we have hit 50 listeners, which...
We were just at 15 last week, so going up...
it's been huge.
Definitely thank you guys. This has been definitely a really big adventure, but we really, really thank you guys for coming
it's definitely
along.
an adventure. Like, every freaking time we have to figure out the mics and the headphones because the way we did it last time doesn't work this time, and it's crazy. So we're gonna... hopefully try to get some better equipment. Yeah. The Patreon helps with that. Because I can't just go and spend $1,000 on equipment to make this better all at one time. So we're kind of piece by piece buying everything. I found a new mic that I bought for my husband that I think will work better for us. So they're kind of expensive. It's Yeti. So anything Yeti is expensive. You can find us on social media for Snapchat, Twitter, but we've got Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and it's all at DSSAI Podcast. Our Facebook is at DSSAI Pod. Our website is www.dssaipod.com. Our email is dssaipodcast@gmail.com, so don't forget to send in your listener tales.
And we will link everything in pretty much all the description.
Yeah, we will link everything in the description, but don't forget to email us. We have one email that's a listener tale, and then we've got another couple emails with suggestions of, like, the urban legend kind of things.
Urban legends are my favorite. I love urban legends.
And we will get to those, definitely, because what that person emailed to us is already on our list. We just haven't gotten there yet, but I promised him that we will. A lot of people on Snapchat and such have said that they've listened and that they enjoy it and they have subscribed, so they'll be hearing every episode. So do that. If y'all could leave comments, ratings, whatever, it helps us get into...
It helps us boost, especially on Apple Podcast.
Apple, we have one listener on Apple Podcast. Everything is Spotify or Amazon, which works for me, but if you can... rate us on there as well. It kind of helps us get...
It helps us grow so that we can get others... Because I know there's a lot of people who are, like, interested in this stuff. And it's really hard to find a podcast that you can actually get into. So...
Hopefully we're that for you.
Yeah, hopefully...
and if we're not, that's okay, too. There are...
We're not for everybody.
There are a lot of podcasts that I have tried to listen to, but... have stopped for one reason or another, and a lot of the time it's because of their voice. Like, some people just don't have a voice that I can sit there and listen to
for hours.
Yeah, so like I've literally found 4 that I can listen to. Bailey Sarian is number 1.
Love
she
Bailey.
is my favorite. And then the ladies at Morbid, Elena and Ash, and That's Why We Drink, Em and Christine, and then Mr. Ballin. I can handle his voice, but like when they do the collabs on Morbid, most of the time I have to turn them off because I cannot stand the other person's voice. Yeah. So I'm real big on voices. So I get it if you guys don't like it. No hard feelings. Thank you for at least trying.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the support and you guys, staying for this long with us.
Yeah, this is 6 episodes that you guys have fought through.
And I mean, the first episode was rough.
It was rough. I tried to re-edit that one to where it was louder. I have not had the confidence to listen to it yet. So I don't know, but I do want to say that I have listened to all of the others back to back.
And they are definitely
And I enjoyed it. Like, it's weird. Like, I thought I would hate hearing my own voice, but I don't.
Yeah, we've improved from the first episode, and, like, seriously, those who have stuck around from the first very, very shitty episode.
Yeah. Where we had only one mic working because we couldn't figure it out, and I didn't take the time to figure it out before we even recorded. That's my bad. I do shit like that. I'm just like, let's get it done. Hey, That doesn't... What?
Oh, no. Everything you do wrong is just because you're blonde.
No. I just don't pay attention, and I try to work fast. Because I've got so much else going on. So, that's all for the rambling. I'll probably edit the majority of that out.
Yeah.
Because we're at 1 hour and 14 minutes right now. On to... What am I trying to say?
Stories.
There you go. 2 stories. But again, thank you guys so much for listening. We do appreciate the support, even if it's just in the form of listening or sharing. But again, thank you guys for listening. We love you. Follow us on social. Email us all of your shit. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We post every Tuesday and Friday. And then once we have enough listener tales, we will do it once a month, depending on how many we get.
We'll try to do it on the 15th of the month, really, depending on what day it is.
Yeah, we'll try. So next week, or when you guys are listening to this, it will be Thanksgiving week. So we may be a day off on posting, because, we've got the family thing to do on Thanksgiving Day. Maybe there will be a guest host on Friday's episode. We don't know yet. So we'll see. And that is all for today. Stay tuned for episode 6, which is this episode on Tuesday. Why am I telling you to stay tuned when you're already listening to it? I don't know. Forgive me.
Again, she's a blonde.
Yeah. But we love you guys. And thank you again for all the support. I cannot say it enough.
We're really, really grateful for you guys.
Yeah. We would not be doing this without you.
Even when it was just a thought to us, we had so many people who were
I don't
so
have those
supportive.
often, so my thoughts are not often.
Yeah.
My brain is smooth. No ridges, no lumps or bumps. No, actually, I'm pretty smart. School smart. I have a bachelor's degree and an associate's degree, so I have 2 degrees. So I'm smart, just not where it counts, I guess.
She doesn't have common sense.
So we love you guys. Thanks for supporting us and listening. Come back next time. Stay spooky. Bye.
Bye, guys.